The music was booming in the Hybe dance studio, but Jungkook's steps were faltering. His mind was miles away. His thoughts were consumed by that dark, soundproof room and the girl he held captive within it. "Jungkook, you missed the step again," Jimin said, signaling for the music to be cut. He noticed the deep exhaustion etched into Jungkook's face, but it was the manic, obsessive glint in his eyes that truly unsettled him. "Sorry, Hyung. I'm just feeling a bit under the weather," Jungkook replied in a flat, emotionless tone as he grabbed his gym bag. "You've missed almost every practice this week, or you leave halfway through. The managers are starting to ask questions." Namjoon said, his voice laced with genuine concern. "I'll handle it," Jungkook snapped without looking at them, and he strode out of the room. His lie was so blatant that the members could no longer ignore the red flags. The moment he cleared the building, he accelerated his black limousine. His body was aching for one thing only: Y/N's touch and the sound of her broken sobs. Inside the mansion's silent room, darkness reigned. Y/N lay on the bed, the thin gold chains clinking softly with her every tremor. Her body still throbbed from the previous night's ordeal. Suddenly the door creaked open. Jungkook entered, the buttons of his shirt already undone. He looked at Y/N, and a poisonous smile spread across his lips. He walked straight to the bed and hovered over her, his presence suffocating. "I missed you, my love," he whispered. His cold hand slid over her bare waist. Y/N shivered, the marks and bruises he had left on her skin earlier now glowing under the dim lamp. Jungkook pressed his lips against her neck, sucking the skin so hard it was bound to leave a deep mark. His touch was now far more brazen and intrusive than before. He pinned her hands to the headboard. "No, Jungkook, no more. Please." Y/N whimpered, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. He hiked her shirt up and dragged his nails across her stomach, leaving light red scratches. "You have no idea. When I'm at the company, all I can think about is how soft your body feels." He leaned down and kissed the burn mark on her thigh with a sickening reverence. "This mark proves you belong only to me." He began to map her body with his lips and teeth, intentionally targeting areas where she felt the most pain. It wasn't an act of love. It was a physical invasion. He wanted to reclaim every inch of her. He pulled her face toward his and kissed her brutally, the metallic taste of blood filling their mouths. He took pleasure in the hollowness of her eyes. Seeing her spirit break was his ultimate high. He moved against her with a desperate dark hunger, alternating between inflicting sharp pain and a twisted form of intimacy that left Y/N feeling shattered from the inside out. "You hate me, don't you?" Jungkook bit her earlobe sharply. "Good. Hate me. The more you hate me, the more I enjoy breaking you." He didn't let her sleep all night. He claimed her body over and over again, his hands and lips bruising her skin until she was nothing but a canvas of his obsession. Her muffled cries were music to him. By the time the sun rose, Y/N was so physically and mentally drained that she drifted into a feverish unconsciousness. Meanwhile, back at Hybe, the tension had reached a breaking point. "Something is seriously wrong," Yoongi muttered, staring at a laptop screen. He had been trying to track Jungkook's phone. He says he's sick at home, but his GPS shows him at a secluded farmhouse 2 hours outside the city. He has no reason to be there. And I heard that Y/N, that makeup artist, hasn't been seen since the day Jungkook started acting strange, Jimin added in a low voice. The members looked at each other, a heavy silence falling over the room. Their golden maknae had disappeared into a darkness they could barely comprehend. They made a silent pact. They would go to that location themselves and find out what Jungkook was hiding. Jungkook's farmhouse was as silent as a graveyard, but behind that silence lay a horrifying truth. JK had completely lost his grip on reality. He no longer cared about the company, his career, or the world outside. For him, the universe had shrunk down to that one dark room where Y/N remained shackled in his chains. "You didn't eat again today?" Jungkook's voice boomed through the room. He approached the bed. YN's hair was a tangled mess, and her face had turned a sickly pale yellow. E/N didn't offer a word in response. Her body was a map of JK's obsession: red welts, blue bruises, and the dark scars of older wounds. Jungkook grabbed her face roughly, forcing her to look at him. "Look at me when I'm talking to you." He tore open the buttons of her shirt and placed his hot hand against her cold, clammy skin. His touch was more violent and invasive than ever. He began to mark her stomach and neck with his lips, reminding her with every bite that she was his slave. "Do you think someone is coming for you? Do you think you'll ever be free? Never." He dragged Y/N off the bed and forced her into a chair, tying her hands behind her back. He knelt before her, stroking her face with a terrifying gentleness. "I will love you so much that you will forget the very meaning of the word freedom." He bit down savagely on her thigh, drawing a muffled scream of agony from her parched throat. Outside the farmhouse, black SUVs screeched to a halt. Jimin, Namjoon, and Yoongi had arrived with the police. Their hearts were pounding against their ribs. They desperately hoped their suspicions were wrong, but as they stepped inside the house, they were met with a sickening smell of rot and a deathly silence. "Jungkook!" Namjoon shouted. There was no answer. The police began searching every room. When they reached the basement, they found a heavy iron door, bolted shut from the outside. "Break it down," the police officer ordered. As the door splintered open, everyone froze in horror. The scene inside was like something out of a nightmare. Jungkook was hovered over Y/N, his hands covered in sweat and her blood, while Y/N lay there, shackled in chains, barely clinging to life. "JK, what have you done?" Jimin screamed, tears streaming down his face. He couldn't recognize his own little brother in the monster standing before him. Jungkook snapped his head toward them, his eyes bloodshot and wild. "Get back. She's mine. No one takes her from me." He tried to lung at the officers, but it took 4 of them to finally wrestle him to the ground and restrain him. "E/N, Y/N, can you hear me?" Yoongi rushed to her, immediately throwing his coat over her exposed, bruised body while trying to find a way to break the chains. There was no light left in Y/N's eyes. She simply looked at Yoongi for a fleeting second before her eyes rolled back, and she lost consciousness. Her body was so covered in marks and burns that even the seasoned police officers looked away in shock. Jungkook was dragged out of the house, kicking and screaming. "Y/N, you belong to me. I'll come back for you." The police handcuffed him and threw him into the back of a van. The members stood in the driveway, watching in silent grief. Their golden maknae was gone. In his place stood a criminal. Several months passed. I/N was eventually discharged from the hospital. She moved to a new city, living under a different name. She took a quiet job in a small IT office where no one knew her past. She attended therapy regularly, but at night, she could still hear the phantom clinking of gold chains. She told herself she was free, but her soul was still trapped in that dark basement. Jungkook was behind bars, but news of his arrest had slowly faded from the headlines. The company had used its immense power to suppress the details. To the world, the story was over. But a monster never truly dies. It only waits for the right moment to strike. Time continued to march on, but for Y/N, every day remained a battle for survival. She had fled Seoul, settling in a remote city where she worked as an administrator for a small IT firm. She followed a rigid routine: go to work, speak to no one, and return home to lock every door and window before the sunset. Her physical wounds had healed, but the burn mark on her thigh and the faint scars on her neck were permanent reminders of that living hell. In the news, it was reported that John Jungkook had been moved to a private facility for mental rehabilitation, but the truth was far darker. Hybe had poured all its resources and influence into ensuring their biggest star didn't rot in a prison cell. They had tried to buy Y/N's silence with massive settlements. And when she refused, they exploited every legal loophole to manufacture a clean chit for his release. Jungkook sat in a pristine white room. He had grown thinner, his features sharper, but the dark intensity in his eyes had only deepened. On the table before him lay a grainy, candid photograph of YN, taken recently. The door opened and his manager stepped in. "Jungkook, the papers are signed. You're free today. But remember, the company secured your release on one condition. You are never to repeat your actions. You're moving abroad immediately." Jungkook offered a slow, sickening smile. He signed the papers, but he had no intention of leaving the country. For weeks, he had used his old dark web contacts to track Y/N. He knew exactly where she lived, which floor her apartment was on, and even the exact hour she fell asleep. A heavy silence draped over the apartment. Y/N was asleep, finally experiencing a rare night without nightmares. But suddenly the air in the room felt different. A primal instinct flared, the sensation of being watched. A faint sound broke the quiet. Click. Y/N's eyes snapped open. Her heart hammered against her ribs so violently she thought it might burst. She reached out with a trembling hand to turn on her bedside lamp, but her fingers froze mid-air. The window was open. The curtain billowed in the cold night breeze. And there, bathed in the pale moonlight, stood a shadow. The figure was motionless. He wore a long black overcoat, and his hair was longer than before, shadowing his face. As he stepped forward into the sliver of light, his features became clear. "Yen, did you really think that locking me behind walls would set you free from me?" That heavy, deep, obsessive voice. Jungkook. E/N's entire body went numb with terror. She wanted to scream, but the sound died in her constricted throat. She scrambled to the far corner of the bed, trembling uncontrollably. You were supposed to be in jail. How are you here?" Jungkook stepped inside through the window with predatory grace. He pulled off his leather gloves and reached toward her face. Y/N flinched, closing her eyes as she shook. Jungkook pressed a finger against her quivering lips. "Shh, don't scream. I've searched so long for you. Did you think changing your office, your city, and your life would keep you from me? I told you, you are my property, and I never lose what belongs to me." He gripped her chin, forcing her to look up at him. His touch was exactly as she remembered. Cold, possessive, and lethal. "There will be no police this time. No members. No one. We're going to a place where there is only me and the sound of your screams." Jungkook leaned down, pressing a lingering, terrifying kiss to her cheek. He whispered into her ear, "Shall we go back home, my little doll?" E/N opened her eyes in sheer desperation, only to see the moonlight glinting off a familiar object in his hand. The key to the gold chains. She was right back where it all began. Her new life, her freedom, her hope. Everything vanished in an instant. The monster was back.